First things first. Today I get to say thank you. Thank you for being part of Spirit Stone celebrating 1 year today. What started out as a tossed out thought and a casual comment from a few people became a vision and then became, for a brief moment, Spirit Beaver. And then turned into this 1 year existence, this entity called Spirit Stone Spiritual Center. And I have you to thank for co-creating that and being it with us. So thank you. Thank you very much. So here we all are. Here's going to be a shocking statement. Are you ready? I've been taken hostage by a movie lately. I know. Who knew? And it's called Cloud Atlas. Just curious, how many of you have seen Cloud Atlas? Oh, good. Okay. So this movie, which is based on a book, deals with issues of choices that we make that impact our own experiences and the experiences of everyone we bump into. And it's most powerfully about how we evolve and change with each new choice that we make. With each cruelty or kindness, each awareness, our ways of seeing and being impact ourselves, our future selves, our past selves on this huge trajectory. It's huge, it's big stuff. So from Cloud Atlas, both the movie and the book, comes this passage. Yesterday, my life was headed in one direction. Today, it's headed in another. Yesterday, I believed that I would never have done what I did today. Those forces that often remake time and space, that can shape and alter who we imagine ourselves to be, begin long before we are born and continue after we perish. Our lives and our choices, like quantum trajectories, are understood moment to moment. But each point of intersection, each encounter, suggests a new potential direction. In the book Cloud Atlas, the overarching idea is that souls evolve throughout time. And as they evolve, they can learn to make choices that elevate them to a more awakened consciousness. Or the opposite. They can choose otherwise. And the book is really fascinating to read. However, the movie takes it, just bumps it up tremendously. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the movie today. And spoiler alert, I don't think I'm ruining anything by talking about the film. And if I do, I sincerely apologize in advance. And if you'd like, we can make it up to you by making that the movie the first weekend in March. We can show that. I will say, as a huge disclaimer, there's some pretty disturbing things in it, some pretty hard moments in it. So it's not like, hey, Pixar, family friendly, come on out. However, it's definitely worth seeing. So in the movie, the directors, the Wachowski siblings, who are the same pair that brought us The Matrix, as well as a few other films, and a man named Tom Tykwer, they took the book's concept and they upped the ante. And they did this by casting the same actors playing roles in different time zones and evolutions. So the actors connected the evolutions by being the same actor, except you can't always tell that it's the same actor. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And so they allow the audience, they allowed the actor themselves, and they allow us as the audience to actually feel this evolution happening. Because you're watching this actor have to be these different characters, have to have these different experiences. It's like a meta experience for the audience, because you're watching the movie, you're watching the story, you're watching the actor, and if you're like me, you're thinking, wow, how did that actor do that role and that role and that role? And it's a very entwining experience. And so the tricky part is that time is, in this film and in the book, time is in non-linear order. So you're in the way past, you're in the way future. We spend a good deal of time in the 70s, which I particularly enjoyed. And then there's future. There's now, it's this swinging pendulum of time. When Heather and I were watching it, we started watching it, and about 20 minutes in, she paused, and she goes, do you have any idea what's going on? And I said, I don't, and I'm going to be okay. Normally, I like to know what's going on. I said, you know what, I'm just going to sit back, and I'm going to just let this happen and see where it takes me. And, of course, now I've since watched it like 7 times. I'm like, oh. But, so, like, for example, Tom Hanks is in this film, and in the order of the movie, he starts out as a very selfish young man in a future existence, and then the evolution happens to lead him to be a selfish con man in a past existence, a narcissistic and really bad writer in a current existence, a compassionate scientist in the 1970s. There's some fabulous hairstyles happening there. And then at the end, he comes full circle to the beginning character in the future existence, older, wiser, evolved, and having found redemption for the mistakes that were made and the choices that were made. I get a little good bumps when I talk about it. I found this online, and I thought this was really cool. They call this the Dream Atlas, and what it is an actual map of the characters and their evolutionary threads. So poor Hugo Weaving and Hugh Grant never evolve. They kind of go downhill. And lovely Halle Berry just starts evolved and stays evolved and becomes even more evolved. She just transcends. So the tricky part about this film, and I mentioned it before, is that the thread of evolution, and as it said in the quote, the thread of evolution for each of us is not necessarily linear if you embrace the idea that our souls travel, that our souls were here before us and will continue on after this lovely container is gone. If that's something that you can accept even just for the next 15 minutes, then walk with me on this, because it's this idea of this linear travel. These moments when we do something and we think, why am I doing that? I've done that before. Or why shouldn't I do that? Because I've done that before. And so these people moving from the past to the future, to the present, to the past, is this constant movement that lets us see where they get stuck and where they get unstuck and where they backslide. And if they're fortunate enough, where they awaken. So how in the world does this movie and any of this have to do with, well, here we all are? Trust me, here we go. It's really easy to forget how precious life is when we get into our moments of day-to-day drudgery. When we get into the making the donuts, hump day, TGIF, here we go again, patterns. And it happens. So I forgive myself for it. And we can let ourselves off the hook for it. It happens. And it happens more often to people that I call us first worlders. Those of us who have hot water and clean water. Those of us who have homes. Those of us who can go to a grocery store that's filled with food. You get the idea. It's easy for us to just let moments slide. Because even in our painful moments, life is relatively easy. And so what tends to waken us from this unintentional stupor that we get into is usually something large, like a natural disaster, either here or abroad, a war breaking out, or more personally close to us, the death of a loved one. I supported my brother Kaleem recently at a memorial service for an amazing young man who left this planet a few weeks ago, way too early in my opinion. And it was during this memorial service when the young man's sister spoke, shared some words with everybody, and I was awakened. She was powerful. And she didn't say anything that we didn't already know. She didn't share any revelation that was like, oh, never heard that before. It was the fact that she was speaking the truth simply and powerfully and strongly from her heart in the midst of some deep pain. And she said this: have absolute courage. Live your life. And then she said, life is short and it's not promised. You know how sometimes we hear little pithy statements or affirmations or bumper stickers and we think, wow, that's really cool, that's really powerful, I'm going to remember that. And a few months later you're like, what was that thing? What was that pithy statement? When this woman, through her grief, said the words, life is short and not promised, my breath stopped. I got it. The only thing that's guaranteed for us is change. Birth, death, and a whole lot of change in between. So how do we remember, as the great Howard Thurman taught, how do we remember to keep fresh before us our moments of high resolve? How do we snap ourselves back into what's important when we get sucked into the mundane? How can we make each moment important? In my philosophy class, one of the students was answering the question, what is beauty? And her answer was, I love this, the unblemished manifestation of value. The unblemished manifestation of value. Michelangelo's David, Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, falling in love, grieving a loss, breathing a deep, fresh breath of cool air after being stuck in a building all day, feeling dew on the grass when the sun is just setting in the summer, tasting something really delicious, finding a friend, making a conscious choice to have no ordinary moments, to be present to life and recognize that our simply being is very important. This, to me, is the unblemished manifestation of value. Noticing, cherishing moments is what keeps us here, present in each moment. And this way, when we do this, our lives touch others, and we create kindness, and we erase past cruelties, and we lay the groundwork for future bliss. We do make a difference simply by being here. And it's no accident that we're all here, because each of one of us is needed. If we weren't needed, we wouldn't be here. It's that simple. There's nothing unnecessary. In Cloud Atlas, there's an exchange between an angry father trying to discourage his son-in-law from making a courageous and very potentially dangerous choice. And he says to him how foolish he is, and he says, no matter what you do, you'll never amount to more than a single drop in a limitless ocean. And the young man replies to him, what is an ocean but a multitude of drops? And on the lighter side, from the Dalai Lama, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. So here we all are. And there are tons of movies that look at this, how one person, their life, their choices, their being here makes a difference, from It's a Wonderful Life, which, everybody's like, yeah. But to the ridiculous, to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I mean, look, if you haven't seen it, it's 1980s, it rocks. And of course, the ultimate teaching movie that has lessons for everyone, The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's presence changes everything, unfortunately, badly for the witch. So we crave, many of us crave to be validated. We want to have it known that we were here. We want to be seen and to know that we made a difference. John has the hiccups. The most important thing, though, is to know it for ourselves without craving it, without craving that validation from others. The most important gift we can give to ourselves is to know it for ourselves, because it's true. It's just the truth. So I found this poem that I thought was really awesome by Mark Nepo, Reduced to Joy. While there is much to do, we are not here to do. Under the want to problem solve is the need to being solve. Often with full being, the problem goes away. The seed, being, solves its darkness by blossoming. The heart, being, solves its loneliness by loving whatever it meets. The tea, being, solves the water by becoming tea. So before we pray, I'm going to ask you all to try something later today. The song that we've done here before called Sau Bono, which we're going to close with today, it's the one that says, I am here to be seen and I see you, is based on an exercise that I learned at seminary, and it was taken from an African tradition of honoring and recognition. And so, just as an example, Anne, I'm going to use you as an example. The exercise would go like this. I would come up to you and say, Anne, I am here to be seen. And you would say, and I see you. And then you would say, Rachel, I'm here to be seen. And I see you. And there's an exchange. And what we all thought at the first day of class was going to be this touchy-feely, here we go, seminary, thing, ended up with 87 people sobbing. 87 people having this intensely emotional response from being seen and seeing. So what I'm going to ask you to do is this. At some point today, or in the next few days when you're up for it, is to do this exercise in the mirror, to be both the seer and the seen and the giver and the receiver, to walk yourself through the entire experience just with you, to remind yourself that you're here to be seen and you are seen. Who we have been has shaped who we are now. And who you are now can be a reflection of who you have been, or it can be a new direction from the past. And that in itself will in turn impact on who you are to be. And whether it's past lives and future lives, or whether it's just this life, we can do it right now. Because here we all are. So let's make here as sweet as possible. Let's do some prayer. Taking a deep breath, releasing whatever thoughts and concerns and arguments and reasons and plans, releasing whatever thoughts that happened throughout the talk, and just being here, right in this moment with the music and the chair, my voice, the breath. Forgiving whatever needs to be forgiven in ourselves and with anyone else we might have something tied. Letting go of it just now for ourselves within ourselves. Finding a way to love what has been and to love what is. Recognizing that whatever word we use for God, Spirit, universe, love, one, heart, all, Allah, Jehovah, whatever word, knowing that what that means, at least in this room, is essence, breath, life, wholeness, connection. And so as we take this moment to hold in prayer those who are suffering the loss of their loved ones, holding in prayer those who are walking with their friends and beloveds through illness and dis-ease, holding in prayer those who are recovering from whatever they've moved through recently, holding in prayer all those who've reached out and all those who have chosen not to reach out, loving them right where they are. Remembering that there is this one mind, this one love, this one consciousness that connects all of us in this large web. And it's love, and it's good. And so we bless our lives, because as long as we know what we know right now, this is the life we have to bless right now. This is it right now. What's to come? Who knows? What's been, what has been is gone. So it's what we have now, here, this moment. We breathe into it, we bless it, give thanks for all of it. And simply let it be. With great, great gratitude, I say, Ashe, Amen. And so it is. Ashe.